because she said, I've been needing you for a long time. And I was like, I've never done this. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And so we started at a base of humility and friendship and really grew something that created powerful trust and um, shared mental models.
What's funny, Rob, is when you're talking, and you said it so nonchalantly. It's like we started with humility and friendship. In order to do that, it requires people to step into the space of knowing that they don't know. So, what if one belief is quietly making leadership harder than it needs to be? The stories we tell ourselves. Many leaders carry the weight of believing that they need to have all the answers and solve every problem on their own. In this conversation with Dr. Rob McGregor, he and I explore where the opposite may actually be true, from humility and trust to genuine partnership and breaking down the us versus them mindset. We talk about what it really takes to lead well in today's complex organizations. So let's jump in.
This is Leadership Sound Bites. Real leaders, real moments, real growth.
Welcome to this week's episode of Leadership Sound Bites. Super special guest, return guest, one that we've done a lot of LinkedIn Lives together too.
Hot seat, yep, hot
Yeah,
seat coaching.
yeah, I love being in the room with you and learning from you and your journey. So Rob McGregor, CEO and co-founder of Sage Advisors, CEO and founder of Sage Advisors, co-founder of its APWI, which is the other part of it. It's the not-for-profit
Correct.
that supports physician wellness, the mental health space that they're in, which is awesome. And so I know you've got a quote to kick us off with. You've been doing some research, and it was funny because I'll just share with people. We were chatting before I hit record, and I'm like, Rob, we just need to jump on the podcast and continue this conversation. So it's all about you, sir. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And it's wonderful to be in the room with you too, Michelle. I always look forward to it. So the quote that I chose is actually described as an African proverb. I don't think I want to go into all the other people that claim this truism, but I really like it. And it's really, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I'm doing some research for a potential consultation on dyadic leadership. And in medicine, that's a pretty common model, and I'm sure you probably experienced that as well. And every time I talk to anybody about dyadic leadership, that quote pops in my head. It's like, well, duh, you want to go far. This is complex stuff. This isn't like just check the box and get it out of the way. So I decided I was blessed in my career to have many positive dyadic relationships, but one in particular at the hospital that I just retired from 18 months ago. Um, she was originally the chief nursing officer when I came in as the very first chief medical officer. So we bonded pretty quickly because she said, I've been needing you for a long time. And I was like, I've never done this. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And so we started at a base of humility and friendship and really grew something that created powerful trust and um, shared mental models. So as I was approached by this other company that I may do some consulting work with, uh, I think I wanted to translate what I experienced into something that is teachable.
Hmm.
Because I think there's probably a step before teaching it is screening who would be teachable.
Hmm.
So I contacted her, and we kept in touch since I retired and said, I need to pick your brain and just troubleshoot why our relationship flourished during COVID when we were co-incident commanders. What was already set up and how could we teach that to other people so that they could develop that same effective, improved efficacy and efficiency of a dyadic relationship. So that quote keeps popping in my head. It's like, yep, you try to do it alone because docs are fiercely independent and think they're the smartest person in the room often. And many times we are, but not always. And I just thought that it would be great to talk it through with you because you're on the
Yeah,
other side as an administrator trying to partner with some
yeah,
challenging
it's
sessions.
what's funny, Rob, is when you're talking, and you said it so nonchalantly. It's like we started with humility and friendship. Um, in order to do that, right, or in order to have those things exist in a relationship of, and I'm going to call it accomplished leaders within an organization, any organization,
Mhm.
um, it's not an easy thing. And you're absolutely right, because it depends on the humans stepping into that thing. And it's not about on an org chart going, oh, you're this part of the org and you're this part of the org, and we're going to put you together. Because it requires people to step into the space of knowing that they don't know a lot, which is the pendulum opposite of what you said is we think we're the smartest people in the room. And that is true for a lot of times. I think a lot of it has to do with you've gone through medical school, you've done all the stuff, you're in the job of literally saving lives. And that's if we don't manage it, that can mess with our mind, the ego side of us, right? Um, and especially when we think of, and I'm not a medical provider, to your point, I support the people that do that work. Um, it's an interesting thing to be able to give a nod to what you know and then be able to recognize, depending on the content and the circumstances, I may not be the most knowledgeable, because it has nothing to do with intelligence, right? The most knowledgeable on this topic. And so it's an interesting thing to do. Ellen Langer, I'll bring another quote in really quick. Ellen Langer said, and she was talking about mindfulness, which is about paying attention. And for me, when I think about humility, humility can, be a breeding ground for curiosity, no judgment, open-minded, all the stuff, is when you know that you don't know, then you pay attention. And when you pay attention, then you will see things that you might otherwise have been blind to. And I think that weaves itself into this circumstance that you're talking about is being able to come in going, I know what I know. And I also know that I don't know a lot.
And I think the challenge that I've witnessed firsthand and your point before I go there, of the fact that it's often the org chart decides who the dyad is.
Mhm.
And I really challenge that. I mean, I was lucky. I was partnered, at the chief medical officer, chief nursing officer. That was logical. She got promoted to COO. The pandemic happened, and I got promoted as incident command. So we kind of grew up together, and
Mhm.
that set the stage. But often physician leaders come to the table with the concept that they have to be an advocate for their people, as opposed to the system view. What is best for the patients we take care of, and what is best to keep our system healthy? And I remember one of my first unpopular decisions I made as CMO as I took all the chairs' job descriptions and I took out the first sentence that said to be the advocate for the people in my division.
Wow.
And I changed it to say to be the advocate to ensure the proper care for the patients who access our division.
Mhm.
And it's words, but some
Mm-mm.
of the docs really were offended. I said, at the end of the day, we have to pull together as a team and a system. At that time we had two campuses. When I retired, we had three and about to be four, and it had gone from probably 200 employed physicians to 600. So it was a new era,
Yeah.
and it was not received well.
Mm-mm.
However, I think I finally wore them down and got HR to throw out the old template because it kept popping up. I rewrote the darn thing 6 times.
You're like, what is happening right now? It's like Groundhog Day.
But I do think that is a barrier, and I think it's a challenge for the medical education systems. And interestingly enough, the woman that I've partnered with so well, and I called and said, why did it work? What did we have? she's teaching nursing at one of the she was a bedside nurse in OB. She wasn't a peds nurse, but she's a really good educator. She's teaching at one of the universities and she
I
teaches
love
leadership. And I said, okay, you teach leadership. What do you teach about dyadic leadership? I mean, these are nurses. They're going to step into organizations that probably more than half of them will use this model. And she said, oh my God, I don't teach it at all. I just
Oh,
teach
wow.
about, the participative, autocratic, transformative leadership. I talk about types, but I don't talk about strategy or moving into that dyadic spaces. So we already have a project going together.
I love it.
I'm going to write my curriculum. She's going to rewrite her curriculum, and I'm going to stand in and help teach her curriculum. So again,
Oh,
that
I love it.
that mutual respect, that uh, trust, and understanding that if I can get over trying to be the only owner, and we can have a greater goal to educate the next generation, that's so cool and that's fun. Even if I am like the second person because the curriculum is really about nursing, or she is the
Mhm.
second person because my curriculum is to get the physician leaders to see it in a different focus. So even in our brief encounter last week, that brought that top of mind, and I thought I would share that with you and get your perspective and see what we might be able to play with here.
I love it. It's interesting. It came to mind when we were talking because it's like parenting, successful parenting. Um, it's not about you being the most well-liked parent, right? It's about raising good humans
Yep.
and getting through that. And I think the shift that you talked about to where the focus on is on me, right? To where I'm going to be an advocate for my people, which sends the message because I do a lot of coaching for physicians and physician leaders. And there is this us and them between frontline docs and administration. And it's been reinforced over time and decisions that have been made and decisions that have been made that the narrative that frontline providers, and I'm going to include any clinical care people. I mean, that's the population that I experience the narrative and the great divide between, right? They don't understand us. They don't care. We're just a cog in the wheel. One recent leader called it a cog in the wheel. Now, if you describe yourself as a cog in the wheel, that's what someone else thinks, how much respect and value do you think you believe they have for you?
Zero.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's the thing, Rob, to get over is that it's not an us and them. It is, we're all in this thing together. And I remember back because I was in the finance side and then process improvement and leadership development and healthcare. And if you mentioned finance at all to clinicians on the front line, that meant you did not care about the patient. And I'm like, well, how did we get here? Right? Because I mean, I was looking at it from if you don't have the funds to buy the equipment, to purchase the supplies, to pay for the building for people to come to, or salaries or anything else, you can't care for anyone. So it's like, how do we, and to your point, bring it together to go, we're doing this because of XYZ. But I think a lot of times the message doesn't get cascaded down, that you don't bring people in the room to have those conversations. And granted, they may need to be mediated at one point because people are so entrenched in what they believe to be true that they're not willing to hear what is true.
Absolutely. When I was new in my role at the hospital that I just retired from, I pulled the chairs together as a group and we met. And I said, well, why are we meeting? And I said, because what you do influences what you have to do. And we can't have disparity among all our people because they talk. They know what they're getting incentivized for, and you're not getting incentivized for it. We need to really minimize variability and improve the transparency of what we do as leaders. And I really came down hard after the first budget season when I realized the messages were I took it to administration and they said no.
Oh,
So I had a I I created a workshop as part of a leadership academy. It's a very early 1.0 or a zero point 0.5 version of Leadership Academy. And it was about the language of leaders. And I put dyads together. They didn't realize they were in the same room on purpose, but because they're territorial, they sat with their dyad, which was by design if I could have done it. And I gave them scenarios to explain our education and training changes the mentality. And I gave them some simple scenarios like, you know, Dr. X wants a PET CT scan, and his administrator is working really hard to get that going and said, what's the timeline? Dr. X says ASAP because some patients are going to leave in our system because of that. And the administrator said, well, the best we can do with the capital request is really put that in first quarter next year. And immediately it started a little fire, and I wanted it to start a fire.
yeah.
So I said, okay, there's a lot of tension here. Let's talk about what our intents are, what our feelings are, and probably start with our feelings because I can't get through all your hustle bustle here. But it was just fascinating. And then when I talked about the rejection of something because administration said no, I said, we're physicians and leaders in administration. And they paused and they said, well, we're the first line of recipients of what administration does. I said, no. Maybe in the old days when you were a private practitioner and you came in here, you just took advantage of what was available. Now you can influence it, but you can't influence it by saying administration said no. Help us get the yes. And you would have thought I was speaking Italian to them. But I think that really needs to start early. And it really, I think the concept of group education and team-based stuff, I used to kind of poo-poo because I thought there's way too much for docs to learn. But I think the communication skills, the collaborative work, the ability to compromise, the ability to have conflict resolution and crucial conversations is probably more important than the content because the content's going to be irrelevant in 3 years.
It's interesting you say that because the stuff that you're talking about is the ability to recognize a narrative you have going, to be able to shift that narrative, step yourself into a different place. I had a group of leaders yesterday. It's virtual training. It was on self-managing through change. And part of it is it's huge about the narrative and what you have going and why the change is happening. And is it being done to me or through me or for me or whatever it is? And those kind of skills are so important. And like I told people, and we were talking about ADCAR, I shared with them ADCAR, which is ProSci's 5 steps, building blocks, if you will, through change, the journey we all go through. And it's just for people listening that don't know, and if you've been in the room before, you know I've said it because it applies to everything, is awareness, right? Is A. D is desire. I make the personal decision to step in and support this change. And K is knowledge. I understand what my role is, what's required of me, when it's starting. You could do training, right, with K. The second A is ability. I can thrive in the post-change world. And R is reinforcement, which means the stuff is in place that we don't go back to the old way. And I let leaders know, because part of this, Rob, is what you're talking about, this, where is my mindset? Where's the narrative as I'm going through this so that I can manage up, so that I'm not sending my part of the org into a tailspin, okay? Because I have the power to do that in that role. Is that if you have not successfully navigated your own journey to desire, which means I make the personal decision to step in and support this change, do not talk to your people. Do not do it. Because out of your mouth will come something like, here we go again. They don't care about us. this too shall pass kind of dialogue. And even if you put a smile on your face and fake it, there is no faking if you have not decided to step in and support this change. And it doesn't mean you think it's the best thing ever. It doesn't mean that if you wore that badge that you would make that decision. It means that you wrapped your brain around, okay, I get that this is a place to start or a place to go, or I understand why the decision was made. And that is the education.
And the hard part is in systems, we're getting people late. So they already have their baggage. They've
Mhm.
already had something done to them. Um, and they're human. And we don't really create a safe space for them to vent outside of their departments. So I tried really hard that when you're frustrated, and you're going to be frustrated, when you're disappointed, you're going to be disappointed. It's often no, but it's often no, not now. Or no, no, let's build a stronger case. Come to me to vent. Get it out of your system so you can get your game face on. And it's a little more authentic because you're not processing for you, you're helping bring your team along. And
Yeah.
that is something that I'm trying to think of a creative way to create that space. I think peer coaching may help. I think just coaching availability for people that are frustrated, they could go to a coach instead of to their team and whine and get them negative before the pieces are all put together.
Bingo, Rob, because when I think about it, yes, peer coaching is a great place to go, and it will not work if you don't have an evolved leadership team,
Right.
right? So for me, it would be yes, coaching, and to get to where, because if you do peer coaching, right, air quote, and people aren't developed and more mature in their thinking, and they're still in victim mode, right? Things are being
Now
to me. All you're going to do is make it louder
spread
and
spread the
stronger.
victims.
Yeah, yeah. And so it is yes, and because a lot of it is the question. It's like I go back to from Crucial Conversations, the hashtag or the bullet point that I took away is we don't get angry and upset about what people say and do. We get angry and upset about the story we tell ourselves as to why they're doing it. And it's like, and people justify, they go, no, 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 it's because I said, but you have to realize we do not know with certainty someone's intention behind why they did what they did. We don't know. And it doesn't serve us. And I think this is the point, Rob, that I can get through to people finally because they hold on to that story for so strong, especially when you have the divide between direct patient care and administration. Is that here's why it matters that you manage your emotional reaction to stuff. Because when you go into that space of emotionally charged, you shut off your prefrontal cortex. All the stuff with innovation, empathy, critical thinking, creative thinking, all the stuff that you need to be the best version of you, you shut it down. So you're operating from this very primal fight or
Primitive.
flight, hungry tiger in the room, adrenaline through the body. And so it's like, it's not about giving someone else a break or letting them off the hook or whatever narrative you're telling. It's like when you get this under control, you're in the best possible position to be the best leader you can be. Lacking that, you're not. And that's the thing that I found, Rob, if nothing else will get through for them to consider something else. And then the question is, right after we identify we have a story, because a lot of people believe that story, they go, no, it's true. No, it's not. You don't know with certainty. You couldn't possibly.
At
What?
best, you know part of the story.
Yeah, well, you know part of it, but you don't know the intention. And that's what drives us emotionally, right? They
Mm.
don't care about us. They're intending to do this. It's all about a money machine for them. It's like, yeah, it's about money and it's about patient care. They're all connected. Okay. But it was like, what would cause a well-intentioned human to do or say this? Well-intentioned. And I joke with people, I look at them, I say, because I guarantee you the story you got going in the beginning, there's no well-intentions at all in there. But I think that's the thing that I've seen that's at least had them consider when they're so grounded in it's us versus them, that it's like this is about you being able to manage the situation or whatever's going on in your best self. And then they'll go, okay. So yeah, that's been my experience with that. But it's because it's been, to your point, it's been decades that this narrative's been going along.
And I think one of the interesting things, there was a really well thought out article. I think it was from Rice University here. It's a Dyad Leadership Blueprint, 9 strategies for effective collaboration.
Oh, I love that.
It was published in the British Medical Journal, and I've just had the opportunity to read through that. But it really talks about the fact that you're my dad partner, you're my administrative person. What the hell's your job? Do I know? No, I don't know. But I know my job, and my job is to keep you from doing stuff that stops my agenda, as opposed to let's understand what our individual strengths are, what we bring to the table. There's going to be some things, if physician behavior is bad, that's going to live in my space. That's just part of the med staff rules and joint commission. But am I going to prepare the budget? You better hope not. I mean, I've taken some courses, and I can read it, but I really need your expertise to put it together in the implications. And well, if this, then what? Those sorts of things. But I think that if we don't start with respecting what I can learn from you, what you can learn from me, how you can disseminate it to the worker bees that really operationalize what my guys and gals really want to have happen at the patient level, you're not going to be effective. So I really think there needs to be some sort of a time sensitive period where people just learn to appreciate each other and understand their language and get, this only moves at the speed of trust. I mean, that old truism. I
Yeah.
really believe
Yeah.
that. And if I think I'm going to game the system by withholding information from you, and we do something that bombs because I didn't tell you X, and you said, "Well, Rob, if you had told me X, we would have never done Y."
Mm-hmm.
But so much, especially with my early leaders, they feel like they can't show cracks. They can't need help. They have to be, fake it till you make it. Well, that's BS.
Mm-hmm.
That's not authentic. That is not going to be enduring or gaining trust. It really needs to be the agendas have to be on the table. If I have an agenda, I want ambient voice recognition in my practice, and I don't share that, but I keep sabotaging all your efficiency measures. That's not in the best interest of the organization.
Mm-mm.
And in the long haul, I mean, I may win a battle, but I'll lose the war.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fascinating. The more I think about it, the more I recognize for me personally how much luck came into play.
Yes. I say you talk about it like, oh, it was and I'm like, you said it so casually. We both came in with humility and we had friendship. I'm like, Rob, that's like we found a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. It's like it is so much, I mean, literally luck of the draw. And then you are the type of leader that you are. Because what you're talking about too, and you're saying, we need to be able to understand from someone else's perspective. Yeah, we need to go to Gemba. We need to go
Yep.
where the
Yep.
work's happening. And so it's a day in the life of fill in the blank, my dyad partner. How do I really understand and appreciate the value that they bring to this relationship? And the other part of it, it's interesting, is and I've talked to a lot of people. So I was in finance for a long time, analytics. And so for me, it is about being able to present the case, the ROI, so that beyond a shadow of a doubt, I understand if I'm the one presenting it, that, oh, this makes good financial sense as well as the rest of the story, right? But what happens a lot of times from my experience is that if you're in clinical care, you don't necessarily package up the request in a way that speaks the language of the people that you're presenting it to that have to approve it. You're just going, we need a PET scan. okay, what's the evidence? What's the magnitude? What's the, I mean, because it needs to pay for itself. How big is this problem? All the stuff. Well, I don't know what, no, you may not know where, but to your point, if you have a dyad partner, that dyad partner most likely has connections to get the information you need to tell a complete story.
Right? The
That's the
volumes,
biggest gap.
the patience lost, all those
Yes,
things.
yes,
But it's so funny that when I think back now on some of the cases that were made, I really needed to filter them because they were downright offensive. It was almost like, Michelle, you're holding out, and there are patients dying. We give better patient care here than up the street, and this is what you like. They go emotional, and
yes.
and when you're sitting on the other side, it's like, well, they think we really don't care. You think we really come to work to make money and kill kids? That's
Yeah.
not what we're about. But it, for me, it was an evolution. But I think it should be what you bring to the table at the very beginning. I just think that we've got to figure out a better way. Now I'm intervening after the fact, so I need to figure like remediation or mitigating things, or how do we set the stage to lessen that for that sort of type of misunderstanding out of the gates.
Well, and part of it's going to be acknowledging, you can call it the elephant in the room, but I mean, it's an elephant that it's like screaming. It's not like in the room silent. I mean, and I think that's where you start, is you may have a belief, you may have experiences, you may have whatever. And for me, it's about creating awareness of where this stuff came from in a way that people can hear it. Because otherwise, what they can hear is, you're wrong, the story's wrong, the what, I mean, all the stuff. And they've lived stuff with a narrative they've created or inherited from other people. And a lot of times it's real. And I find that it's so entrenched and real in leaders that have been in patient care, because administration has not been amazing in every organization to be able to have those conversations. So it's just been this us and them. They don't understand. And a lot of times you've got administrators. I remember one hospital I worked at, I was doing process improvement, surgical services. It was a Kaizen event, so a week-long improvement event. We had our Friday report out of the work that we are doing, and it was great work. And so there was a scrub tech. So scrub tech, who doesn't know, they're in the OR next to the surgeon, assisting in the surgery. He had been at this particular hospital for 20 some years. 20 some years at this hospital. It was a 640 bed hospital. So it's not, campus upon campus, but still. And he had been in the main campus building where administrative offices are. Okay. The CEO had been there 30 years. Okay. So it's not like it was turning people over in leadership. So we're in the report out. The CEO walks in and the scrub tech looks at me and goes, "Who's that?" Yes. Yes. So the CEO, well intentioned, did not perceive his role to be beyond the out community or his leadership team aligning. So he did not go in and to see what's happening in the hospital, like into surgical services. And what happens is, Rob, is that people that are not clinical, and don't do patient care aren't comfortable in those environments. I remember the first time I went in with scrubs, and I think it was a women and children labor and delivery. And so it's the first time I was processing with a consultant, right? A lean consultant. And I came from finance. I was a finance director at a hospital. Okay. And I switched jobs. And so I'm with my buddy, and she's formerly a nurse. And she goes, "We're going to do scrubs and we're going to do operations," because we were doing process improvement. And I said, "Scrubs, we're okay." I had no idea. I was like a fish out of water. And this is what people feel. And I worked at hospitals. Okay. But now you're telling me to go on where patients are and people giving care are. It's scary. because it's unknown. And I think that's the divide that we need to go, is that administration goes to where the work is actually happening so that people who are doing that work can see that they care and they're curious about what's happening.
Yeah.
I think it'd be huge.
But I think we did institute um, walk rounds or Gemba rounds
Yes,
so that I can remember I had never been to sterile processing. I just knew that
it
cereals
happened.
got put in a bin, they went away, they came back all packaged. And I went through, and this was not that many years ago. They still had a manual system. So, like, we computerized all our other stuff, but sterile processing was manual and they rewrote things. It was like when I was an intern, you drew the blood gas, you ran the blood gas, you wrote it down in the labs report, you went to the bedside, you wrote it down in the nursing chart, and then you put it in your note. It was like, there's got to be a better way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Instead of duplication. Yeah,
but,
redundancy.
but you know, the fact that I went there and they saw me when something came down that my name was attached with, they weren't like, who's he? They didn't always like it, but it's like, well, he listened to us. He asked us what we could do. Um, and I think that your point is so well taken to walk in their shoes. You know, one day there was a snowstorm, and environmental folks, most of our environmental folks were really dependent on the buses.
Oh,
And you know, most of the docks, because we're not big city area, but we had SUVs, so we had more docks than we had ancillary staff.
yeah,
And it's okay, who's gonna vacuum this
yeah,
corridor? And they said, what? I said, you take off your coat, take off your tie. We've got to help. It's only one day. You're not gonna have patients show anyhow. Let's
yeah.
do it. And it was just enlightening to realize how many people didn't see you. You
Mhm.
might have been the most visible, most popular doctor in the hospital, but once you grabbed a vacuum, even your coworkers would walk by you and you were
Mhm.
invisible. I said, huh,
Yeah.
maybe you need to think about that because we want everybody connected to the mission, yet we we were guilty of exclusion.
Hmm.
We didn't see people where they were. So how are
Hmm.
they going to feel part of the organization?
That is incredibly powerful, Rob, what you just said, and the experience that the providers had that experienced that, because it's like, oh, so it's not, it is my title, it is the role that I have. It's not me as the human. And it's one of those things that my mom, I remember she passed away, shoot, it's been 26 years now. But we had the service for her, and then she worked like 48 miles away from home at a hospital. And it was 4 weeks after we had her service that the hospital had their own service for my mom,
It's great.
because there were people in there. My mom was the kind of human that she brought little gifts. She remembered, your child and you were going to Disneyland, and how what so everyone was of equal value. That's how I grew up. And so you had, EBS, and you had, administrators and administrative assistants and all this. It didn't matter who you were. Mom would bring cookies, little gifts, or set up whatever. I mean, that's mom. And so they had a remembering and a service for it. It was the hardest thing to go through 4 weeks after I'd lost her, and we had done it to open that stuff up again. But it was a testament to who she was and the experience she created for people. Because my mom's the kind of person that did see the person with the vacuum. And I think it's so important that we see people as the humans they are, and not just blinders on and all we see is the role. So yeah, huge. That's huge. And so when you think about it, how do you create those experiences?
Yeah, you know, the one thing that my former organization did well is we would have employee meals. Twice a year, we would have employee meals where it was free, and we served. We served on the line. You know, if it was the the summer one, I would always do burgers, and we would go to the branch campuses and do that so they would be able to like connect.
Yeah.
And I think it was really valuable. And I know in my own main campus where I hung out most of the time, all the people in dietary, they knew me because I was a goofball. We were cooking on the line. It's like
I love
I
it.
just had fun working with them and giving
Yeah.
them a break. Um, so I think it gave joy both ways. And I think there are simple things like that that systems can do, but they, again, when we have such focus on efficiency and getting the work done and doing that, I think we sometimes shoot ourselves in the foot by saying that's soft skills. They don't need to know I'm empathic. They just need to follow my rules.
Mhm. One
It's
leads to the
service
other.
leadership, and I think servant leadership doesn't really get its own in some leadership catalogs. Servant leaders, one of them, but it's often put in there as an afterthought. And I really think that we probably need to move that a little higher up the chain.
Hmm. Yeah. There's a what and there's a how, and servant leadership's the how. Yeah. Um, I so appreciate the time in the room with you. I'm like learning and absorbing, and it's like, how can we have other people hear this and learn it and do something with it? And I'm so excited.
Well,
Um,
I'm going to take ADCAR. I remember you telling me this before, but I didn't write
yeah.
it down. I'm taking that with me. So if you see that come back,
Oh, I love it.
I'll
Yeah.
give you credit. But I think if you come up with some ideas, or if any of the people that listen to this come up with some ideas to really enhance dyadic relationships from the get-go. I
Hmm.
mean, there's some literature that said we should be screening people. I haven't I haven't done a deeper dive into screening tools, but the organization is already set. And Dr. X retires. Well, Michele Smith already knows that stuff. We're not going to build a new dyadic team, but there needs to be some more
I don't think
thoughtful
it's
approach.
screening. Okay, that word doesn't resonate with me. But what does, Rob, is some level of readiness. So how do we prepare
Build it.
people
Yeah, I think you're
to
right.
go into a dyad, right? So that it's like if you go out and the field is all hard, compact dirt and you just throw seeds, probably not going to grow so well. But if you go out and till the fields, right?
Right.
I'm not screening anything. I'm saying, there's my plot of land. I'm going to go till the fields. I'm going to ready them. I think it's the readiness. How do you ready people? Development. You're going to have some people that are further along than others. But to your point that you mentioned, some level of coaching, some level of, and you can go into group coaching to be able to plant seeds so that people, these are intelligent individuals, that they're all of a sudden ready for something else. They're considering something else they hadn't thought of before. And it happens all the time in coaching. You're a coach. Is
Right.
that a lot of times, and my style is coaching, mentoring, and consulting. That's just the flavor that I bring. But I will plant seeds with people and I tell them, we're just planting seeds. And they go away and their brain processes stuff and they will start observing things that they were otherwise. Then I go back to Helen Langer. When you know that you don't know, then you pay attention.
Right.
And then you see things that you might otherwise have been blind to, right?
And I
It,
always tell my coaching clients all the learning happens between sessions. And that's
yes.
that's an exaggeration. It's not all the learning, but
No, but a bulk
to
of
your
it.
point, it's like, have you thought of another way to look at this?
Yes.
And they'll say, there isn't another way. I said, let's play with some frame shifts, and you come back and tell me in 2 weeks
Yeah.
what shifted and what you noticed and what you appreciated. So
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of overlap, but I'm excited. I don't know what I'm going to do with this curriculum, but if
Yeah.
anybody
Let me,
listening has some
I would
components,
love to take a pass at it with you, sir, and learn from it and then also contribute or give you some thoughts.
that's
Yeah.
awesome.
So
That's
let me
awesome.
know. I'm up for it. I love just the legs of learning and development so that humans can create different experiences with them for themselves and for other humans. So, as we wrap up, again, I appreciate what is something that you would love out of all the things that we talked about, people to walk away with?
I think people need to embrace who they are in their role and look to see ways they might be able to go further, especially those in the beginning of their career where they're trying to prove themselves and they feel that they have to own everything.
Mm.
You know, find a partner, find a mentor, but build your board of trustees that can be your personal advice and reflector to help you go further, because you'll get somewhere fast, but if you really want to sustain it's much more fun to take a friend or a mentor or
Mhm.
else with you.
Well, and to piggyback on that, a common term that is found in healthcare is burnout.
Right.
And when you do leverage, delegate, partner, retell yourself the story, and you are able to create capacity for yourself. Because I'm in the room with leaders and I'll tell them, I said, you're not Tom Hanks on an island with a bunch of FedEx packages. I mean, there are humans around. Look, and don't tell yourself the story that they're buried too. Don't do that. People love to help other people. Let them in. So I totally agree with you. Yeah.
I think that the literature shows that you don't have to be happy with your job 100% of the time. But if you can get 20% of that happy, joyful encounters, and as I tapped my old COO and say, okay, why did it work? I took away so much joy from that encounter that I thought it wasn't what we got done necessarily. It was how we did it.
Mhm.
That really took the task out of things that were pretty complicated and pretty
Mhm.
complex, so that it's yet another tool in your toolbox to prevent burnout, is to and embrace the humanity of those you're going to work with.
Yeah. It's the what and there's the how.
Yeah.
The what and the how. The what can still be there. It's how you approach it that makes all the difference. Yeah. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll put your contact information in the description of it. Let me know if I can learn from you and then give you some thoughts on it. I love the work that you're doing, the space that you're in now. So
I'm having a great rewirement.
I love it. I love it. All right. Until next time, this is Leadership Soundbites with Rob and Michelle. Have an awesome, awesome day. Thank you for liking, sharing, and subscribing. Have a great
Thank
one.
you.
Okay, bye.